You are warmly welcome once again to the historic Cape Coast Castle and dungeons. My name is Kofi Essel. Kofi Essel. I'll be with you for the next 1 hour. Please feel free to ask questions. Your comments and your inputs are welcome. And this morning, our focus would be on the transatlantic slave trade. And that, after a brief introduction, we'll visit the male captives dungeon. From the male captives dungeon, we'll go back to the courtyard. From the courtyard, we shall walk on a tunnel. We will look at part of the tunnel, visit the female's punishment cell, female captives dungeon. We shall walk through the door of no return into the fishing community. However, today you are assured that we shall return. Alright, now we are on top of the tunnel. The tunnel is beneath it. We will soon look at part of it. But here we have cannons, and then cannon balls there for defense. Cannons and cannon balls for defense. Indeed, the trade was profitable. For that reason, Europeans were always fighting amongst themselves. Yes, the Portuguese were the first European nation to have occupied this piece of land. They were defeated by the Swedish. Swedish were defeated by the Danish. Danish were defeated by the Dutch. Dutch were defeated by the English. So the English built the castle in 1665. The castle was built over a period of 300 years. As they built the castle, they used this to defend it. There was a very strong relationship between some African leaders and the merchants. Yes. So some African leaders went out there, fought several wars, got people and brought them here for European goods such as gunpowder, schnapps, tobacco, among others. Yes, again, most of them were gotten through intertribal wars, and these wars were spearheaded by some African chiefs. Yes, some of the captives were also gotten by kidnapping. We had what we call slave raiders. People went out there to raid homes, raid villages. Orphans were enslaved. Debtors were enslaved. Wrongdoers in society were also enslaved. Yes. Now, basically, there are 3 castles in Ghana. We have the Elmina Castle, built by the Portuguese around 1482. We also have the Christiansborg Castle in Accra, built by the Danish around 1661. And then Cape Coast Castle and dungeons. This very castle built by the English around 1665. However, in the whole of West Africa, Europeans built about 66 forts and castles. But then, out of the 66 forts and castles, Ghana had about 46 because of gold, which means that 3 castles and then 43 forts dotted along the coastline of Ghana. Now, this castle was built by the English, at a point when transatlantic slave trade was at its peak, and that captives were captured not only from Ghana, but including Burkina Faso, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Mali, Senegal, Gambia, and other neighboring West African countries. I guess we are now in the male captives dungeon. Now, the male captives dungeon has 5 chambers. This is the very first chamber. We'll soon go through the rest of the chambers. Now, the 5 chambers were designed for 1,000 men at a time. 1,000 men at a time, which means that 200 men in each of the chambers at a time. And so 200 men would be in here for a minimum period of 2 weeks and a maximum period of 3 months awaiting shipment. Indeed, each space was a complete apartment. They were fed in here. They defecated here. They slept here. They did everything here. At the time, there wasn't any electricity in the country. For that reason, the host up there served as a source of light and ventilation. The trenches here served as drainage system. When it rained, water passed through the holes towards their faces, urine, vomit, leftover food, among other materials into the ocean. And so you can imagine the offensive smell here at the time. You can imagine the mosquitoes here at the time. You can imagine the house flies here at the time. Diseases. We all know that the heat in urine alone is enough to kill. We generate electricity from our own faces, but innocent souls lived in here for such a longer period, and that they died in their numbers. Indeed, millions of people died over here. Therefore, as you remain sensitive, you will hear souls crying all over the place. Some were thrown into the ocean. Some were given mass burial in the courtyard. An excavation work done in the courtyard around 1996 confirms that some were given mass burial over there. This chamber was for the strong men, those who were always trying to rebel. They were here. Don't forget, while they were here, they were in chains and shackles. It is said that the walls have ears, the walls have eyes, the walls have mouth, but they don't have the willpower to speak. If the walls could speak, the walls would have been the best position to tell us the story. If the walls could speak, the walls would have been the best position to tell us the pains, the difficulties, the endurance, the brutalities that the captives experienced. They lost contact with their family members. Today we are using the same door of no return. However, you are assured that we shall return. Alright, so as the captives used this door, officers used the staircase. So that side was the arrival and departure lounge for the officers. Again, the ships could not come to this part of the shore because this part is shallow. So they used smaller boats to convey them and then transferred them onto the ships. They were packed like sardines and that they died in their numbers. But those who died were thrown into the ocean where the fishes chewed them up. Those who felt sick were equally thrown into the ocean where the fishes chewed them up. They spent about a month to 3 before getting to the New World, depending on the direction of the wind, the weather, and then also the destination. In 1998, barely 21 years ago, Ghana celebrated the first Emancipation Day, Freedom Day, to commemorate the end of slave trade. The occasion was dubbed the Great Homecoming. During that celebration, 2 ex-slaves were exhumed from their graves and were brought back to the castle. They were exhumed from Jamaica and then New York. Samuel Carson from New York, Madame Crystal from Jamaica. Through airplane, they brought them to Kotoka International Airport. Through the land, they got to a community called Abanzi. Through the ocean, they came back to the castle through this same door. Here in the castle, a ceremony was performed. After that ceremony, they were taken back to Asene Manson, where they took their last African bath for reburial. Our chiefs in Ghana unveiled a plaque, and it reads that, in everlasting memory of the anguish of our ancestors, may those who died rest in perfect peace. They are telling us that may those who return find their roots, that may humanity, you and I, never again perpetrate such injustice against humanity. We, the living, vow to uphold this. But to conclude, let me emphasize that slavery is ongoing in so many forms. To the extent that today there are so many people in slavery than in the past, in that we can still talk of child labor, we can talk of child trafficking, child prostitution, institutional racism, how some people maltreat their maid servants, their workers, very terrible. Today, some work for 2 years, 3 years without any allowance, without any salary. This is happening right here in this country. It is happening in other parts of the world. We can talk of mental slavery or psychological slavery, political slavery, religious slavery, economic slavery. Look at what is happening in Libya, for example. It is very terrible. But going forward, I have always suggested that as individuals, wherever we find ourselves, regardless of our race, regardless of our skin color, regardless of our religious affiliation, regardless of our political affiliation, let us see ourselves as one people created by the same creator, no matter what. So for us, we are human beings, somebody will serve the other. But then somebody serving you doesn't mean that you should treat a person as a slave. Let's respect one another. Treat each other with fairness and equality, justice. Let's do unto others whatever we would want others to do unto us. Whatever resources, whatever talent, whatever potential that God has given to each of us, let's value it and be self-reliant. Let us be transformed by the renewal of our mind. Because until we change the way we think, some of us will forever be in chains. Until we change the way we think, some of us will forever enslave others. Let's educate ourselves. Having gone through the dungeons doesn't mean that we should begin to hate one another. The truism is that hating one another wouldn't solve the problem. Shifting blames on others wouldn't solve the problem. Rather, let's come together and fight against slavery in our society. Let's all join hands and campaign against slavery in our society, because together we stand, divided we fall. The impact of one, there can be a change. Therefore, as individuals in our own small way, let us be the agents of change that we want to see within our immediate environment. On that note, I want to appreciate you for your time with me. My name has been Francis Kofi Essel. It's been beautiful having you as my guest. Thank you exceedingly. God bless you. Have a fruitful morning.
Thank you too.
Thank you, Francis.
Thank you.
Can I just write down your full name? Because we are from a Swedish museum and we would like to acknowledge this really good and informative tour with your full name.
Right.
Can I? Would you like to write yourself? Yeah.